Let us go. We're live on YouTube. Let me just fix this. Episode 67. Daily discussions. Good morning, Mr. Tarun. Good morning. How are you doing? I hope you could sleep well and you didn't overthink. Right? And that was nice. You didn't sleep for 12 hours, I'm hoping. Just one second, let me sort this out. Yeah. Okay. Done. So now we're live on LinkedIn. We're live on YouTube. Just need to send this message to my folks on WhatsApp, which is very important. Very important. Just one second. So one of our viewers of Thinkers Frequency gave me the advice, which has turned out to be very well, actually good advice. So she said that you should keep it in the name, something that what this discussion is about, on YouTube and on LinkedIn. You don't have it written anywhere. And I was like, wasn't that obvious? Because I wasn't trying to attract outside audience, right? Because I thought I won't be able to attract any outside audience beyond my LinkedIn and Substack writing, readers. So I thought, why bother? But she said, no, maybe you can, and that has actually worked out in our favor. Some people we've been able to attract. That goes here. 67th episode. Sent. WhatsApp ready, LinkedIn ready, YouTube ready, everything ready. And then we will begin. I guess you can hear me properly, Mr. Tarun. There's no problem there, right? I hope there's not. So let's begin talking. Let's begin the show that we deserve. The show that we deserve. It's that good. We deserve it. And we get it. Every day. So lucky. So lucky. Yeah, perfect. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinkers Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinkers Frequency, a daily mental workout, a daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go. Oh, but before we go, you got to follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition. You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and it'll bring us a lot of good luck. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a copper, mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen, jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. Today I'm having green tea with some black pepper in it. It's supposed to be very good for me. It is actually, I like it. And here we go. Beautiful. Sublime. Let's do it again. Delicious. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you're not alone. It says that we are in this together. And that is such a nice thing to say, such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. As Dalal Street buzzes, small city promoters enter chat. What this report wants to say is that even small companies are being able to go public and raise a lot of public money through initial public offerings. Well, that isn't surprising. The share of small companies in raising IPO money has increased because IPOs have essentially become a very predictable way. They've become the new age predictable lotteries, right? So, the general strategy behind IPOs is that you get an IPO with some decent buzz, and if you get an allotment, that IPO gives you like a 30% or 10% or 15% pop, and that pop essentially, then you liquidate that pop and then you don't care what happens. So that is a predictable strategy, and that is a win-win for both these people, right? The small, so people have been participating in IPOs of companies which they don't have any clue about. No, they don't have any clue about that, but they went ahead anyway. And a lot of such companies actually went down. You know, people in addition to the IPO markets, people have actually gone in the pre-IPO market to buy shares, so that when they IPO, they can make use of that upward lift, right? And sometimes it hasn't panned out. We've discussed it. I guess it was HDB. It was some finance company which had an IPO, and people had its pre-IPO shares and they went down 40%. What was it? It was HDFC Finance. Was it? No, I am forgetting the name. What was it? We discussed it at Viewers Thinkers Free. And viewers would know, right? We discussed that company which was supposed to IPO, and it fell 40% before its IPO. It was HDB. HDB. You're right, Mr. Patil. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much. You're right. So, people, yeah, it's quite a rare event, definitely, but it happened, and it won't be as rare, is what we mean here. Mr. Anshul Chechani says Swiggy too. No, Swiggy didn't fall pre-IPO. So Swiggy had an IPO pop and then it fell. That's basically every company. Good morning, Mr. Patil. So nice to see you after it's been a long time. And yes, you're right, Mr. Tarun. It's not obvious for YouTube to recommend it, as it uses title and description to recommend it. Yeah, that's why I changed the title today. Right? So let's move on. Geofinance is going to raise 15,000 crores via preference issue. No doubts there. Geofinance is really kicking it in the Caribbean. It's going up. Speaking of things which are kicking in, Tesla has inked a $4.3 billion deal with LG Energy for its batteries. It's basically a battery deal. So Tesla is doing a lot of such procurements now. Just yesterday or day before, we discussed how Tesla essentially tied up with Samsung for a $16.5 billion deal, right? And Mr. Musk said that I would personally help Samsung's factory become more efficient because it's right around my house, right? And now this 4.3% battery deal with LG, it's essentially amidst the tariff situation that's going on with US, because US has levied some tariffs as far as battery tech is considered. And Tesla has said, the CFO of Tesla, which is Mr. Vaibhav Taneja, he's an Indian. So he said that while we are trying to localize that kind of production, it's not easy. And while we are trying to move away from that position, it's not easy. Tariffs have not really been very kind to Apple as well. Now Apple is gonna have its earnings showcase, and slow AI because Apple couldn't do anything as far as AI is considered. It launched its Apple Intelligence, but it was dumb. And it also wrote a very flashy, very intellectual paper on how existing LLMs are not really thinking, they're just pattern recognition machines. But then people asked it, what have you done? What have you done lately? And now it's looking at acquiring, you know, Perplexity or something. So never know. But Apple's earnings are basically under pressure, high expectations. It has a lot of weight on the US S&P. So with tariffs, with India getting tariffs, even though that particular tariff, the electronics manufacturing, they're not gonna get tariff because it's under Section 232, so that's safe. But with India's tariff situation and the Chinese tariff situation and all the global tariff situation as far as US market is considered, Apple is going to have a tough time, and this particular earnings call needs to be studied very deeply or observed very closely, right? Speaking of tariffs, we know the big news today, right? We know the big news. What is the big news? What is the big news? The big news is that US has imposed a 25% you know, plus penalty. So they say, Mr. Trump says that US has is going to tariff India basis 25% plus penalties, unverified, unspecified penalties, because India has been supporting Russia a lot. Now, as soon as this news came out, like extremely dumb takes started coming on internet, man. It was just pathetic show of dumbness. That, oh, India should essentially break away from US, and India needs to build on its own. If China could build on its own without US help, India could also build on its own. So India hasn't sacrificed its self-respect, whatever the shit was. That it was so dumb. It was so embarrassingly stupid that it was just nauseating. But let's look at this in a very practical way, what it means, what it doesn't mean. US sanction. But is Twitter message considered really official? It's Truth Social. And yeah, it's not official. You're right, Mr. Patel. You're right to doubt it. But definitely, why not? It's coming from the president. And he says it's going to get levied from August 1. So here we are. Yes, but the deal isn't settled yet. So it's not indicative of the proper deal which is going to happen. So India has to have, the August 25th US teams come in India. So let's see what happens. October around, we're going to get a proper deal. But what is this? What is this? And what does it mean? Yeah, Mr. Tarun says if they had read a bit of China history, they wouldn't be making these arguments. Yeah, just saying something like if China could build without US, India could build without, US too. You're right, Mr. Chichani, deal is under. So let's look at this practically. We've discussed this. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember we talked about this, that something like this could happen because it's gonna be a very tough negotiation for India. We talked about this, right? You remember when we said that India and Russia and US are in a real serious crossfire, and India could come under that crossfire anytime soon. And this trade negotiation will be complicated because India buys a lot of Russian energy and so on. So we saw this coming, and we had this coming. But let's just run through why this is happening properly. So US made the mistake of trying a regime change operation in Russia, right? It had done that in Libya, it had done that in Iran, it had done that in a lot of places, but it made the mistake of going for Russia with this regime change operation. That's what it was. They wanted to replace Vladimir Putin, right, with Ukraine as a proxy. And that's what it started. So they started bringing Ukraine into NATO, they started doing everything. Russia attacked Ukraine around in Barack Obama's time. That was 2014 or something, right? Then 2016 to 20, nothing happened. But then 2020, the Democrat war machine essentially thought it was a good idea to pressurize Russia with this Ukraine war. And they went on a full conflict. They invested like $150 billion, spent $150 billion on Ukraine to essentially hurt Russia, right? They hurt Russia, they blew up the Keystone pipeline, they funded Ukraine with money, with war equipment. They sanctioned Russia, they put tariffs on Russia, they kicked it out of the Swift payment system, the global payment system. They started seizing properties and assets of Russian oligarchs. So they tried every trick in the book to essentially hurt Russia, right? Somehow, Russian economy didn't falter, right? Russian economy didn't falter at all. And unlike US, it didn't even have to print a lot of money. Inflation stayed in control, the economy stayed in control, the exports stayed in control, the defense stayed in control, everything stayed in control, right? Now, when Trump came back, Mr. Trump came back in 2024, they were out of chips, right? So first reaction was to try and do some bonhomie, that hey, we're cool, we're not gonna fund Ukraine anymore, we're not gonna be, you know, uh, fighting anymore. So let's calm down, let's do that. So the first effort was to not sort of placate Russia. Now, that wouldn't fly with Mr. Putin anymore, apparently, because the country had suffered, right? And now it was proved that there's nothing that these guys can do to actually deter Russia, right? So Russia didn't pay heed to all those peacemaking efforts. And those were genuine peacemaking efforts, right? Mr. Trump tried to slow down, stop giving Ukraine any money, stop giving Ukraine weapons, and so on and so forth. It said it fought with Zelensky, you know, but Russia essentially didn't stop. Now, when Russia has announced that it's not intending to stop anytime soon, and US has basically tried every tariff in the book for Russia, what can US do, right? What can US do? Now, what US can do is start going for its allies, right? Now, even that option is very limited because US has already gone for China, right? So, US has already sanctioned China. China is the greatest adversary, even more than Russia. So, US Democrats used to believe that Russia is the greatest US adversary, right? But Trump and the right wing, US right wing, used to believe and still believe that it's not Russia that is the enemy, it's China, right? So China is already being taken care of with all the extraordinary tariffs and everything that US is trying upon China. What is US left with to counter Russia, right? It is India. So India becomes a collateral damage in this fight between US and Russia. That's what this is. This is essentially a US effort to stop Russia with the war. That's what these people are trying. So, you get the gist of the whole story. India is the second largest, or perhaps the largest or second largest, energy importer from Russia after China. When they fought against Russia, they drew Russia in the arms of China. Now, Russia plus China is the greatest landmass, the greatest number of people, the strongest economy, the strongest energy reserve, and so on and so forth, right? So, Russia and China are the strongest bloc possible. They already did that. But they want to deter Russia. What can they do? The only missing piece was India. And they said India is going to get tariffed, right? So, what they perhaps expect is that India can broker, or let's say lead to some sort of peacekeeping initiative, and India's pressurizing India could lead to some directional movement as far as Russia is considered. That's what this is. It's basically a you know, two dates in a prompt situation for India, because India desperately needs US. India has a trade surplus with US. India has a very big trading relationship with US. India's exports to US are extremely large. Perhaps it's the largest trading partner essentially of India, right? And all, like Indian IT makes half of its money from US. Gems and jewelry exports, half of them come by US. They're bought by US. Crude and so on and so forth. It's like US is the biggest trading partner of India, right? It US means money. And when US says that India cannot make money, India will try to influence Russia to maybe tone it down a little or maybe just stop, right? Because Mr. Trump's threats, or let's say deadlines or ultimatums, like you gotta stop it in 10 days, you gotta do that, didn't work, right? You got to do. What do you do? This is what you do. Mr. Chirag Patil says something. So by being with Russia, we face economic issues. Now with Russia helping Pakistan with military aid, not sure if we did make good choices. So we tried our best, you know. Uh, we tried our best. India essentially tried its best as far as navigating this situation is considered. So India kept a very good relationship with Russia. It kept buying its oil. India also kept a good relationship with US. It started buying its defense purchases. You know, it sort of kept itself stable in Europe. So India tried doing whatever it could do, but this is above India's pay grade, right? This is beyond our pay grade, essentially. We are a part of a larger conflict, and what we are stuck with are two. It's a Kobayashi Maru situation, right? We've discussed the Kobayashi Maru situation, the Star Trek situation, where you have a war going on and one of your people are out there. This is from Star Trek, the situation. That person is out there, and if you try and rescue that person, you will end up starting a war. And if you don't rescue that person is gonna die. So that is a loss, and that is a loss, right? So it's a Kobayashi Maru situation. But in a Kobayashi Maru situation, there is a an aspect of Captain Kirk situation, right? So what Captain Kirk did in Kobayashi Maru, he changed the rules of the simulation and got an outcome which wasn't defined in the rules. So that's what Captain Kirk ended up doing with Kobayashi Maru. So let's see if India can do something as far as this is considered. Obviously, very complicated. Obviously, not easy. Because the great thing could have been if India could have joined, let's say, Russia China bloc, right? India, Russia, China. Essentially, Euro can get screwed, America can get screwed if India, Russia, and China could be a bloc, right? That would have been the strongest possible alliance. Nobody can do anything about it. However, China is an open and unabashed adversary. China doesn't want to budge. China wants to literally hurt India. China sees India as a threat or as an enemy or whatever. Even though we are like nothing as far as the size is considered. We are a 4 trillion economy. They're a 17, 18 trillion economy. They're like almost 5 times as us, right? And China, as Mr. Patil just said, China is tight with Pakistan. Not just Pakistan, China is getting tight with Bangladesh. China is wanting to literally corner India from all sides, strategically, and contain India as a part. So China is an open and unabashed adversary of India. So India can't even go with Russia and say, screw you to US. India needs US for all it offers, all the market it offers, and so on and so forth. And at the same time, India can't be an ally to US because that will hurt the relationship with Russia, which is a very, very good all-weather ally, has been for 40, 70 years essentially. So that is a very tricky situation. And while India tries to navigate through these waters, we face very difficult situations because Russia tries to get close to Pakistan, again, a big problem. So this is what it is, what you can expect. Now we've analyzed the situation. Now let's see what can happen. What do you see happening? What is the prediction here? Right? We are famous for making a lot of predictions, right? We make a lot of predictions and a lot of good predictions. We are pretty good at it now. 67 days it's happened. So 67 days are cool. Now, question is, what can happen, right? One second, folks. I'll have to sort out this technical difficulty. Apparently, my LinkedIn title didn't change. Done. Yeah. So let's predict what's gonna happen. As far as prediction is considered, do we does India have a pull? Is Mr. Trump seeing something that we're not seeing? Does India actually have a pull as far as this particular situation is considered? Can India effectively, you know, ask Russia, or let's say influence Russia to go slow with the conflict, or let's say end the conflict? Is there a pull that we are not seeing? What we can expect is that regardless of what happens there, India will try to evaluate this situation and talk to Russia about it. And everybody is trying to it'll everybody, basically the allies of Russia, will try to influence Russia to essentially bring down the conflict and let go of this tariff situation, right? Because this is a very good strategy as far as US is considered. So a lot of people are not appreciating that how good this strategy is as compared to, let's say, heating up the war, right? Let's say if the military industrial complex of US said, let's go on a hot war, let's continue supplying weapons to Ukraine, let's escalate the war itself, the act of war. This is a better tactic of doing that, right? This essentially causes some economic damage, but that is temporary. All you've got to do is stop the war and then business flows. So this is a very, very good tactic. However, can India influence Russia is a very, very big question. So it would be aggrandizing on our part to assume that India has that kind of a pull. However, India does get like 50-60 billion dollars worth of Russian oil, right? And if India says that you're gonna stop it because this is happening, maybe those economic trouble, because Russia is greatly dependent on China and India. This is true. The reason why Russian economy didn't go to the tank was because India and China essentially cushioned every loss that the country could have made, right? And if India starts suffering, and if India sort of positions that, hey, let's pause this, maybe you see a quicker end to the conflict. So our prediction right now, the information that we have is a quicker end to the conflict, and this getting reversed soon after. That's what it is. Moving on, in another story, very intense, right? Very intense. But till this particular deal gets sorted, it's gonna be a bit of a problem for everybody, right? Everybody's gonna be a bit of a problem. Trust allowed Tata Sons exit talks with SP Group, Shapurji Palanji Group. They are talking about SP Group's exit from Tata Trust. So SP Group, which is Shapurji Palanji, and Tata Trust have a very, very long relationship. Like it's 100-year-old relationship, right? But which recently got shunned. You remember what happened with Tata Trust and Shapurji Palanji Group? So Shapurji Palanji Group were the financiers of Tata Group. They're like the junior partners in the Tata Group. They have somewhere around 16 to 20% stake in Tata Trust, and they got Cyrus Mistry. Cyrus Mistry, after Ratan Tata, Mr. Ratan Tata Cyrus Mistry, Mr. Mistry, got uh, appointed as the chief of Tata. Right. This was the first time that a Mistry or like somebody from Shapurji Palanji was leading Tata. But that didn't sit well with Tata, right? Mr. Tata, rest in peace, Mr. Ratan Tata. So that led to a big conflict between Mr. Cyrus Mistry and Mr. Tata. Mr. Mistry essentially rounded a lot of allegations against Mr. Tata and how he conducted business, and then he was fired, right? The boardroom showdown happened, and then Mistries were essentially the Shapurji Palanjis were set aside, right? And then, by the way, Mr. Cyrus Mistry also died in a car accident. Now, what happened was Shapurji Palanji Group otherwise had a lot of debt, a serious amount of debt, right? We've discussed this. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember that Shapurji Palanji Group was trying to refinance its debt by, raising another debt at an interest rate of somewhere around 18%. So that was the interest rate it was willing to pay just to refinance. Just imagine how risky that debt must be of Shapurji Palanji, right? So Shapurji Palanji was trying this out, but the trouble is that Shapurji Palanji's net worth essentially is tied with Tata Trust. So what Shapurji Palanji was insisting was that Tata Trust should get listed so that it could use that particular security to clear the debts that it has, right? As because it can't sell, the trust fund share. Now that was a bone of contention between Tata's and Shapurji Palanji Group. Now what is happening is that Tata is saying that we don't want to go public with the trust. Trust is going to stay private. Trust doesn't need to go public. What we can do is essentially talk about your exit. So Tata might just try to buy out Shapurji Palanji's stake in the trust, right? And that would essentially mean the departure for both of these groups. So this is going to be huge, very huge. Tata Sons looking to avoid listing, ramp up investments, will explore multiple options for SP Group stake. It has valued at 3 lakh crores. 3 lakh crores is essentially $36 billion, $36 to $38 billion. So that's what Tata Group is going to try. Tata Trust is unlisted company status. Yeah. So this is what's happening with the Shapurji Palanji and Tata Trust scenario. Very, very complicated, very big news. And speaking of Tata, Tata is going to buy Iveco, let's call it Iveco because it's an Italian company. So Iveco's commercial vehicle business in a $4.4 billion all cash deal. So that's what's happening. $4.4 billion all cash deal happening with Iveco. And it's not been received well by the stock markets for Tata because the Iveco's defense business is not a part of this deal, right? So Iveco's defense business is going to be out. And also Iveco's defense business share in its revenue had increased. So while Iveco's stock was okay, because it's going to get its, commercial vehicle business sold at a premium, Tata Motor stock went 3.5% down. So this news wasn't received very well by, the market. Interestingly, Iveco has also been a very important partner for the larger Indian commercial vehicle business, the truck business. How? It is the company which essentially led to Ashok Leyland, the Hinduja company. So Hinduja company had tied up with Iveco for its platforms, for its engines and for everything. And then Hinduja's, the Ashok Leyland guys ended up buying out Iveco's share from, their company. So Ashok Leyland has no relation with Iveco now. But Iveco's engines, Iveco's technology is not new to the Indian market. So with this, Tata is trying to grow its you know commercial vehicle business, the truck business, which market share is going down, by the way, from 50 it's come down to 30 or something, 40. uh, with it's gonna get back in the game, and it's also gonna look at international markets. But at the moment, the stock market didn't appreciate that particular deal. This is the largest deal for Tata. It's twice the size of JLR deal. JLR is Jaguar Land Rover, that expensive car that these people sell. So it's twice that. 2.3 billion was that, and this is 4.7, 4.4. So this is very large deal. It's all Chorus, the steel uh, acquisition was at $12 billion, but that doesn't matter. In the vehicle automotive space, this is the largest acquisition, but not very well received by the markets right now. Speaking of not very well received, something that I personally fear a lot is that obesity drugs gain weight in labs. So obesity drugs like semaglutide and terzepatide, right? These drugs are really kicking it. They are on fire, and they're blockbuster drugs essentially. And these blockbuster drugs are looking at more research. So more and more people are researching on these drugs, right? So it's not just gonna be these particular GLPs. More, variations of this drug are being looked at by pharma companies. So they say that a lot of people are overweight. So the mechanism of these drugs is they're basically hormone controllers, right? So they look at, let's say, slowing down the metabolism, the gut metabolism, or let's say the stomach clearing, and that kind of a thing. Then they also are trying to look at the mRNA, the gene, way of treating the metabolism, and so on and so forth. So all of these are very scary technologies. One of those drugs is looking at pancreas. So they are looking at a lot of technological variations to how to handle this particular game. All of it is very scary, but this is going on. By the way, what is sad is that none of these people, none of Indian, pharma companies are actually doing anything as far as research of this is considered. Most pharma companies are just essentially, uh, you know, uh, just going for the generic trade as usual. So while Chinese pharma companies are actually looking at research and development, Indian companies are not. Just one Indian company is actually looking at uh, some R&D on this. I guess it's Zydus. Let me check. But rest of them are just looking at generic manufacturing, which by the way also got Zydus got into trouble, right? The patent lawsuit was Zydus. So Zydus cannot be that company which was doing research. Zydus was the company which is making Novo Nordisk's drug and the biologic of it, which is getting the patent infringement. So let me check. Let me check the exact company. Yeah, the treatment modality. Mm-hmm. A lot of, yeah, a growing number of Chinese companies, including Innovent, Savant, Zhejiang, Duer, Inogen, and Jiangsu Hengrui, are catching up. While India's Sun Pharma is the only one from the country that is listed to develop its own molecule, Urtriglutide, in early stages of clinical trial. Others, like Reddy's, Biocon, Cipla, are developing copies of semaglutide. As expected, Indian Pharma is only looking at creating copies, not much of R&D happening as always. So this is that. Let me just yeah, okay. So the tech part of it, which I explained a little unclearly, perhaps how they work. Principally, it is right, but let me just talk about. Let me just say exact technicality of it. Uh, Current multiple modalities are being approached, like silencing certain genes using RNA interference technology that may have a longer effect than injectables. Another biologic pathway is to target amylin, a hormone secreted by pancreas and has a role to play in stomach emptying and reduced calorie intake without causing nausea. Some of the research involves combining multiple targets like GLP and GIP and amylin analogs. So pancreas, amylin, uh, mRNA, RNA, and so on and so forth. These basically, this is what they are trying, right? So yeah, that's what's happening. I'm personally very scared of these drugs, and I'm definitely not very positive of these drugs, of whatever they are claiming. I think it could have very, very serious implications for people, and they've already started showing, by the way. These drugs have started causing blindness amongst people in UK and so on and so forth. But we've discussed that a lot, so let's move forward. Let's move forward, folks. Boom, 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 boom. Industry needs to focus on primary ammo ingredients. Defense Production Secretary. They say that we should try to, look at the ammo supply and manufacturing of it, because that particular bit is weak. But no surprise there. India needs to do a lot of defense work. Defense as a sector is looking at some sort of weakness as far as stock market is considered. As we said, that's going to be a short-term weakness, but the numbers are going to be out, and let's see what the numbers have to say. And then there's going to be a revision that's going to happen as far as defense budget is considered. So that will also play a part in what the industry has to look forward to. As far as I'm concerned, I believe that India is going to really significantly raise its defense spend, which is going to bring these companies back up. Right? Moving on. MIB blocks 43 OTT apps for breaking content rules, explicit videos, adult content, and so on and so forth. Well, like, duh. Medtech firms flag inflated MRPs on imported devices. Hospitals, retailers push for foreign items to earn higher margins. So, Indian medtech industry. Yeah. So, DBT recipients of central schemes to face fresh audits. Now, what did we discuss? What do we always discuss? We discuss that wherever, there are a lot of people, there is a lot of money, and there's a lot of time to make things complex. That's where corruption happens, right? Mr. Scott Adams said, Scott Adams, sir. Now, DBT recipients are getting audits because that's what the country is figuring out. So the country has done a really good job in the last 10 years by actually having these direct benefit transfer schemes where they, instead of handing over money to agents or let's say intermediaries, they directly transfer it. But even with that, you get a lot of gas, right? A lot of faff in the system, a lot of fraud, a lot of scam. And that's what happened. Center saved 3.5 lakh crore by eliminating efficiencies between FY15 to 23, right? So there were a lot of inefficiencies as far as these transfer schemes were considered. 3.5 lakh crores is roughly $40 billion, right? They cancelled 50 lakh duplicate fake ration cards, saved 1.86 lakh crores there. So 50 million is 5 crore fake ration cards, okay? 41.5 million fake duplicate or inactive LNG connections. 41.5. 4 crore fake duplicate or inactive LNG connections. There was money was going, right? That was 74,000 crores. 74,000 crores. So that kind of stuff, 7 lakh bogus names under Manrega scheme, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, right? And 17 million fake beneficiaries under PM Kisan scheme. So these things should be audited, are being audited. And this is good news that we now have a clue. Because imagine without Jandhan or without Ujjwala or without Ayushman Bharat or without all of these things coming on a dashboard, what do we know? What do we know? Where do we know? Where does the money go? How do we be sure about it, right? We can't be sure about it, right? So that this is a very good scheme. Verification to be done by December to update the data ahead of next financial commerce cycle starting April. So that's pretty good news. Half of the money that goes out just goes in fraud and waste, right? And that's not just an Indian problem, by the way. It's also a US problem. That's what Doge essentially stood for, right? Clearing the fraud and waste. But you know what happened with Doge? Whatever money they ended up saving, the Doge guys, uh, for from that waste of fraud, that was just taken as an opportunity to spend more by the US government, by the politicians. So instead of actually saving that money, what it was intended for, to reduce the debt deficit, they just said that, oh, we saved this much money, so we're going to spend it here. So that's that. PM internship third pilot rollout in a month. Something I've never understood is this Pradhan Mantri internship scheme, Prime Minister internship scheme, where companies are getting incentivized to provide internships. Apparently, they've got like 40,000 internships, these companies, these people. I don't believe any of it. You know why I don't believe any of it? Because companies could just be hiring interns anyway and then using this scheme as a means of, you know, uh, just showing that this scheme essentially helped those interns. Because 40,000 is no number, right? So journey so far: phase 1 application 6,21,000, offers made 82,000, candidates joined 8,700, phase 2 22,000, phase 3 44,000. How does it matter, right? I don't think this was a good scheme, and it seems like it's not really working out, right? Moving on, we've discussed a lot about trade, US trade, services trade, product trade, a lot of good things for India for as far as US is considered, but not so good right now. Moving on. Uh, uh, Question to viewers of Thinkers Frequency, a very big question, very big question. Okay, very important question. Just think about this for a second, and think very closely. The question is, how does it feel to be so awesome? How does it feel to be so ahead of the curve? Huh? How does it feel to be so ahead of the curve? That's my question. Does it feel great? You can take some time to answer. How does it feel to be so awesome is my question to the 12 people that are watching. Just tell me, does it feel good or what? So we've been talking about how GCCs are trouble for IT. We've been saying that, right? We've been saying that for a long time, that growth of GCC is a bad news for IT. And even though IT players have been saying that it's not, it is, right? Read the headline. Rapid GCC growth may be hurting IT outsourcing industry. What do you think? What do you think? It feels great to be in good company. Mr. Rakichinder. अब तो लगता है अपुनिच भगवान है. It's so much fun, man. Just read it again. Rapid GCC growth may be hurting IT outsourcing industry. Right? Oh my god. It feels good knowing about various topics without fluff and from someone who has know-how and background about it. just know, Mr. Tarun. Now these people are agreeing. We've been talking about this for almost 70 days. And now finally, tech sector, which operates in a pyramid structure by hiring more entry-level coders, is witnessing a foundational shift with AI, automation, and GCC. What did I tell you? What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? Yes, I told you. I feel like an African lady on hindsight, right? I do feel like that a lot these days. Like, what did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? What was that? And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And so on and so forth. This is so awesome. This is great. Should have just asked Nishant, says Mr. Tarun. Mr. Tarun, you're so kind. Speaking of this, you know what happened with me yesterday? Personal news. Need to check out who is this African lady. So it's actually a joke, Mr. Patil, from Family Guy. So you type, African lady in hindsight, Family Guy, and you will see that video. It's a small video, but very funny. So, you know what happened with me yesterday? Yesterday I got an ad request of Mr. Sood. Now, Mr. Sood is the MD of Avendus. Okay. Now, MD of Avendus, I was like surprised. I said, whoa, that's a big deal, man. So whenever I get these kind of ad requests, like one day I got an ad request from Vijay Shekhar Sharma, sir, right? Paytm. One day from the chief general manager of RBI and so on and so on. So like, whoa, this is huge, right? And Avendus Capital is a huge company, and they do a lot of big work, right? So the MD and head of equities at Avendus, and I wrote a message to him. Oh, quite an honor to be added by you, sir. Right? To which he replied, ha 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 ha. Okay. I'm sure he's not watching, and he won't reach this far in the show. So I can say it openly, right? Because, so he said, ha 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 ha. And I'm like, what the hell was that? So I read, I tried to read why would he respond like that. And I saw that Avendus Capital guys are the ones who've written Lenskart's IPO. Right? And I mean, so the guy essentially responsible for underwriting the Lenskart IPO added me. And when I said, quite an honor to be added by you, sir, he said, you asshole. You asshole. Now the question is, why did he add me? Right? Why did he add me? And if he really added me, why did he not interact properly? It's like confusing, right? If you hate somebody, or if you don't like somebody, or if you've followed somebody's comments and you don't appreciate them, you'd try to stay away from that person, right? Right? But he added me and he said, ha 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 ha. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Getting a ha 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 from the MD of Avendus. I'm only saying this because I know for a fact that nobody's gonna reach here, right? This is only a very, very limited, small club of people. So this particular bit is not gonna reach a lot of people. That's why I have, but I respect him a lot, man. Great job. Even if he watches this, no harm intended, no offense intended. I'm sorry if I caused some problems, but that's what. Telcos add users in metros, lose in smaller cities in June. Jio, Airtel gaining, the usual shit, Vodafone losing, BSNL losing, and so on and so forth. You will be on board to evaluate such companies next time, so that's why he might have reached out, says Mr. Tal. Well, you never know. You never know. I don't have a lot of time for this, to be honest. A lot of people start asking me, hey, can you do an analysis on Misho as well? Can you do this as well? Can you do that as well? But I'm very happy with Thinker's Frequency, right? And I would, because writing takes time. So writing is hard, and you gotta sit for like an hour to actually frame your thoughts. Thinker's Frequency, I research for 1.5 hours, I talk for 1 hour, and it's a great discussion, 2.5 hours, and I'm like, my battery is sorted. Anyway, moving on. What I meant to say was that there's not enough time for me to analyze all these IPO companies. And I'm like, who's paying me for this? Come on. I have a question related to Thinker's Frequency, which I have delayed to ask for a long time, says Mr. Patil. Mr. Patil, why is there a section of bum bum bum? Before we start the session. That's basically inspired by Scott Adams, sir. So Scott Adams, sir, the hero, the guy responsible for Thinkers Frequency. Thinkers Frequency exists because Coffee with Scott Adams exists and has been existing for 10 years. So just to fill the silence, the bum 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 bum. It's a nice way because we don't have that. If you look at TV and you look at TV shows, they have this all dun, 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 that kind of a music right now. I can't start that here. So I just fill that space with, you know, some sort of news. Moving on, Vedanta parent is looking at investor nod to prepay $550 million in debt. Now, this is yet again a show of strength by Vedanta Group. Vedanta Group recently got shorted by Viceroy, but short didn't happen, nothing happened, right? And Vedanta essentially said that, you know, all of this, what you've said is just right there in public, right? So what are you talking about? Now Vedanta is looking at prepaying its investor debt to $550 million. You know, basically they're refinancing 700 million. They're raising 700 million to refinance a private credit facility to prepay a $550 billion debt. So Vedanta is still heavy under debt, but somehow it looks like it's gonna sail through, right? So no bad news there, and which is good. RBI to hold another VRRR today. Now a lot of people know, but VRRR is variable reverse repo auction, right? Yeah, it's good that they're fixing books. You're right, Mr. Patil. So they are holding it again to suck the excess liquidity out of the system, right? Moving on, IT firms pivot from mass fresher hires to specialized talent signups. Compensation for specialized fresher touches 12 to 15 lakhs per annum. Now this is very bad news for a lot of people, because India generates about 5 lakh engineers every year, right? At least 5 lakh engineers. So let me just say, number of fresh engineering graduates India per year, right? It should be 5 lakhs. Oh, no, that's not possible. 1.5 million? Nah. This can't be true, because total people in AIEEE, the people who give AIEEE exam, how many people give AIEEE exam now? 12 lakh, 15 lakh people, right? So about 5 lakh 5 lakh people join the engineering. So every year, in my estimate, we produce about 500,000 engineers. And if the bottom of the pyramid hiring, the 35,000 hiring, goes down, what do these people do? That's a very big trouble, because 10% of 1.5 million engineers, they get jobs in India, according to a report, right? So what does that happen? Mr. Chirag Patil says, on one hand, interest rate is coming down. On the other hand, these VRR to suck out liquidity. Is this normal? Oh yes, Mr. Patil. We've discussed about this. So reducing the interest rates is for the market. The VRR auctions is for the bank. This is for the business to business side. Now, why they do that is, let's say banks have cash, right? Now that cash lying idle is a bit of a problem. Even for a day, if that bank's cash is not earning interest, it's basically dead money, right? It's lost money. Banking is essentially earning interest, right? So if you have money at the bank, which has not yet been translated to people, okay, to companies, to people, that money is static money, is a bit of a problem. So what needs to happen is, you've got to suck out the excess liquidity from that system by giving an option to park money here for an interest. That's what this is about. Okay, we've talked about this, but it is confusing. So I clarified. I hope that worked. So India IT firms pivoting. This is bad news. You know, Reliance in advanced talks to lead 50 million raise in space firm Digantara. This is very good. This is very good. We need a lot of new investments in space tech, defense tech, because what's going to absorb a lot of what we have, right? GCCs are currently hiring like 1.8 lakh people, 1.8 lakh people, while IT firms have stopped hiring. They're hiring barely 13,000 people or something of that sort. So a lot of that, uh, you know, remaining quantum is going to get absorbed somewhere, which is where space tech, defense tech, and so on and so forth come forward. So we really need to do that. Reliance is planning to sell 5% Geo stake to raise $6 billion. Geo was trying to go public, but that plan, I don't know what's happening with that plan. Nobody knows. Geo says that it's a point that Indian markets, Indian capital markets, are not big enough to absorb something like a Geo, which is a fair thought. So they might just go public. With private institutions. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency should know that Geo essentially got Facebook to invest in it, and also Google to invest in it, and for a lot of money, right? So that's how it raised money. It got partnerships, global partnerships. So maybe something like that happens yet again. Moving on, Bharat Pay, firmly on profitability track, wanting to go public, you know, raking in 8 to 10 crore per month in profit before tax. So that's what's happening with Bharat Pay. Bharat Pay is essentially a lending platform. It analyzes retailers' data and offers them loans, high interest loans, and that loan book right now is looking good. It's looking good. So let's see. Also, yesterday's episode of Thinkers Frequency, we talked about how Bajaj Finance was talking that 16 out of the 17 sectors it tracks are showing negative growth or contractions. 3 of them are showing contractions, 13 of them are showing negative growth. That's what it said, right? Or maybe reverse of it. 13 was showing negative growth and 3 were showing contraction. But a lot of mixed signals are going from the market, right? Some people are saying that this is actually happening. Like retail loan book is looking good for Bharat Pay. So who do we trust, right? Maybe Bharat Pay is a very small player. It's an inconsequential player as far as Bajaj Finance is considered, which is an indicator, which is a proxy for the entire market. So a lot of mixed signals coming from the India play. Speaking of mixed signals, Indigo's profit has nosedived 20%. It's not really a nosedive, it's a decline. And it's actually a very good decline, not a bad decline. It could have been worse because of whatever happened with Air India crash and India Pak conflict, where all the flights had to be diverted. You would have expected these people to make a loss, but they didn't make a loss. They still made like 2,000 plus crores, 2,176 crores, in the last quarter, which is great. Indigo is one of the only companies. Indigo is perhaps the only company which has been regularly profitable. But airline is as an industry is so difficult that even that isn't really a good deal, right? But these people have really done a very, very good job. Speaking of Industars, Q1 profit is down. Industars is the Bharti company that sell tars. It's going to be in a bit of a trouble because a lot of 5G and 4G has already happened. And Reliance's CBR technology, was it? The domestic technology that they created, it uses less stars. And Industars is deeply dependent on Vodafone for its revenues. So its profit is down 10%, but other thing is looking okay. Profit after tax fell despite an 88 crore writing back provisions made against doubtful receivables from cash-strapped Vodafone, one of its anchor customers, and so on and so forth. So it's a subsidiary of Airtel. Mahindra and Mahindra Q1 net rises 24%. Revenue share touches 27.3%. So Mahindra has gained a lot in this falling car market. Essentially, SUVs are the only thing selling. 66% of all vehicle sales are SUVs. So Mahindra has a 27% share and volumes increase 22%. So, you know, uh, this is awesome. This is great. This is beautiful. Mahindra, good news for Mahindra. Speaking of Mahindra and car, smartphone shipments have also risen 7% this quarter. So that's a good sign. Again, mixed signals. We talk about mixed signals. A bit complicated, but always interesting, right? Nayara drops a case against Microsoft as Microsoft resumes services. So, as a part of the sanctions, what Microsoft did was it sort of stopped its services to Nayara. Nayara, that company was which recently sanctioned by US, the Russian and Reliance company, Rosneft and Reliance, they were sanctioned by US, right? And in addition to the sanctions, Microsoft inadvertently just closed their services. They couldn't mail anybody. So these people sued Microsoft that, hey, how could you do that? But then Microsoft resumed its services. So they dropped the case. Always interesting. This world is always interesting, and it's so fun, so much fun to figure it out like this, right? It's so much fun. It's so lovely. I had a lovely time talking yet again, folks. Thank you so much to Mr. Patil, Mr. Tarun, Mr. Jindal, Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Chichani, uh, and so on. It was lovely talking to you all. With this, we come to the end of the 67th episode of Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis. Right before we punch in, it's 9:11 yet again. This is the second time we are stopping the show at 9:11. It's 9:11. I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. Bye bye.